What do we study here?
The way of the flirt, sir!
And what is that way?
Tight fast, check shit, no mercy, sir!
I can't hear you.
Tight fast, check shit, no mercy, sir!
Flurfspective. Flurfspective. Flurfspective.
And if you would, please like, comment and subscribe. Hi guys, I'm back again, but if you were expecting some laughs and some satire, this might not be the video for you. And I know what you're saying, another video, crikey, slow down. Well, I would, but I have a fair bit of spare time at the moment. Unfortunately, the hernia operation that I had last year seems to have failed, and I'm wondering why I was in so much pain for the last 2 weeks, and that is essentially the reason. The tightness that was there around the belly button, that's gone. So yeah, I'm in a bit of pain at the moment, so I can't work currently. So basically that gives me more time to do these videos for you and keep you all entertained. So let's get to it. So something a little more useful for you today, an insight into the factions and the beliefs inside of the Flurf community. So let's start with this. There is not one solid belief inside of Flat Earth. Whereas with the globe, the model and predictions are set in stone, for the most part at least, while on Flat Earth the beliefs can be wildly different. But let's start with the things that almost every Flurf does actually agree with. Water finds its level and appears to show no curvature.
Oh! And now you can see that it tilts out, finds its own level.
The moon landings never happened.
But 60 years ago, we were just sending 3 people, just translunar injection, and go land on them. Oh, so great. Just magical.
Nobody is living on the ISS.
You just sent me this. This is nonsense, mate. Come on.
All images of Earth from space have been faked.
It's the same photo. They just changed the contrast.
The globe model is one giant psyop.
It would seem that there are certainly families or bloodlines or secret societies that control certain aspects of our life.
And once you go flat, you never go back. Well, as I can attest myself to at least the last one being wrong, along with many others including Seek Truth, Speak Truth, and Jose JG. Who also happens to have a fantastic YouTube channel. He holds daily debates there. His platform is way more appealing to both sides than his Oakley's Flat Earth debates, as people are treated with respect over there and can actually have decent conversations. Also, Jose is an excellent host, very entertaining, so please go and check him out. The link is in the description.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live from Florida to the YouTube universe. Jose JG Gonzalez. Happy to be here in this, your daily boom.
But back to their beliefs. And I must admit, I also believed what they too believed. Water does not curve, and nobody is on the ISS, etc., etc., etc. However, my beliefs were constructed around the first premise about water not curving. And once I deconstructed that notion, I was able to turn off my inner Flurf. However, for most others caught in this belief, the entirety of their claims must be debunked for them to accept defeat. And this might be tougher than it seems at first. So let's take Del from Beyond the Imaginary Curve channel. His entire argument is that water is flat and it finds its level and cannot stick to a globe. He rarely talks about anything else, and all his followers chant the same mantra. The Globers call them Deltards, or will call Del Shebrage, because, well, he does get angry, and quite a lot. His followers mimic him though. You can easily spot a Deltard in the chat by the way they talk and the way they behave. A word that will often give the game away of who they support is the word testicle. And I kid you not. So, if you see someone saying testicle in the chat, they are probably a Deltard. So Del's faction is completely different to Oakley's faction. His faction can be identified by saying such as gas pressure without a container, or what's the independent variable. Now, Huey and Oakley's core followers are essentially the same, except Oakley has a bigger following and has stolen all of Quantum Eraser's arguments. So you can assume Quantum Eraser when I also talk about Oakley. Anyway, the stolen scientific method argument is simply not fit for purpose. So if there are any potatoes listening, and we often refer to Oakley's followers as potatoes, then listen up and pin your ears back. You cannot manipulate the independent variable when trying to science nature. The scientific method that Oakley is pushing is just one method of many methods to understand science. For instance, to take care of your lawn, which I rarely do, you might need several tools to do it. One tool will not do everything. Horses for courses and all that. You need the right tool for the job. If the answer to science lay in a glass jar, you wouldn't try to open it with a sledgehammer. So you cannot manipulate nature. You cannot manipulate the sun, the moon, the stars, the oceans, etc. So his test is flawed. And as it is flawed, there can never be any resolution. This is his go-to get out of jail card that he uses all the time. But it is simply not fit for purpose. The argument will always end with it cannot be proven. Well, that is true. Using his scientific method, but he is deliberately using it because it has no proof at the end of it. Ask yourself, why would he do this? What does he achieve by doing this in his debates? Well, it is not to get to the truth, that is for sure. If it was, he would use the correct science for the correct problem. He does not. And he does that to maintain his show, to maintain his income, to maintain a non-conclusion so that he can get longevity out of his nonsense. And you potatoes who follow him are the ones who are caught in his word salad trap. He is playing you for fools and you are letting him. Next, you have the Spurs chemo brand of make stuff up. In his flirf mind, nothing is off the table. Everything from slopey flat earth, to there being no pressure on earth, to there being hobgoblins turning a big wheel under the oceans to create the tides. This guy thinks of everything. I believe tonight that Seek Truth, Speak Truth will be debating him. You might get a chance to listen firsthand to the utter crap that he comes up with. As an ex-flirf, even I at the time was taken aback by some of his beliefs. You also have the Globbusters followers, who have faith that the Globbusters team can actually figure things out using real science and equipment. They are similar to FE Core, but whereas FE Core rarely reveal any of their results or participate openly, the Globbusters team often like to brag about their accomplishments. Most of their content is hidden behind a paywall though. Anyway, the trouble is, Bob No Del, the super flirf, isn't as smart as he wants people to think. There have been many instances in the past of him exaggerating his skill set. Being a commercial pilot was just one of them, but he's often seen sniffing around the chats and bragging about gyro experiments that he has conducted that support flat Earth. The sad thing is that when the data was finally released, it actually showed a precession, exactly as you would expect, on a spinning globe. But he is nothing but a survivor in this debate, and can spin a win whenever he wants. Sadly, his followers are so caught up in his ramblings that they just accept his answers and move on.
But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15-degree-per-hour drift.
Even when Jeranism did his hole-in-the-boards test that showed curvature, people still accepted that. What he actually saw was flat. It was just optics and perspective, you know?
Wow, that's kind of a problem.
Interesting.
These factions really don't tend to get along with each other either, because the Deltards mistrust the Globs, that's the Globbusters followers, because they think he is an agent and a shill. Yeah, the Deltards think everyone is a grass or a cop or a paid agent. They are the real nut jobs. So Deltards don't like Globs, and potatoes hate the Globs and the Deltards equally, as the ether argument between Globs and potatoes rages on, and the ego war between Okie and Del also rages on. And quite honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You have the rectangular looping model followers, the Pac-Man followers, the infinite plane followers, and I haven't even spoken about the Dubays or even the Math Powerlands. If you thought flat earthers were in any place right now to create a working model, think again. These warring factions couldn't agree on the colour of shite. Which is why inside the flat earth, a flurf can be accepted into the faction that best suits their personalities. And because the flurf leaders have no understanding of science, they can come up with absolutely anything. Why? Because nobody can prove it. I also was not adverse to it either, and I must admit, when I watched the video about the consonants of Earth apparently shown on the face of the moon, I really took to that, and I mentioned it over a couple of days on my show, and I simply was fascinated by the idea. I didn't check properly the evidence though, as I just parroted what I had watched. It was pointed out to me that the consonants, while certainly looking like ones here on Earth, were not in their correct positions. So I went and checked it out and did my own research on it, and a couple of days later I never brought that subject up again. But it was a fascinating idea, and I think that that is what attracts the flurf. Something undiscovered, something new, and something that can grab your imagination. I also believe, well, almost to a person, that people on flat Earth got there because they followed the tried and tested conspiracy trail. They wandered down every rabbit hole, just as I did. And we were all so conditioned to outlandish claims that flat Earth could, in some ways, be even possible. If you had never been down the rabbit hole, though, first, you would simply dismiss flat Earth out of hand. And I believe that the way YouTube operated back in, let's say, 2009 to 2018 or so, deeply affected the conspiratards. Back then, YouTube recommended all the conspiracies. The algorithm actually presented you with new videos to watch. It was a free-for-all, and YouTube pushed it to all of us back then. Times have changed now, though. But if you check most of the flurf influx, it was around 2016 or thereabouts. So there was a platform that existed that actively encouraged the conspiracy theorists to flourish, and people followed the path to flat Earth. But I believe what keeps people inside the flat Earth is the ability to at least attempt some research on your own, or go outside and look at the moon or the sun as mystical objects that could be plasma or a map or something. You could also go down to the beach and get outside and test distances and how far you can see. You can actively participate in theories or create them yourself and test them in some obscure way, which is why I love doing the kitchen science skits. I am sure, if given time, I could find almost every single flurf who has content on flat Earth using some kitchen science. No doubt about it. It's like being a kid again, opening your mind to play with things and try and connect with what you can replicate in the kitchen to the real world. Now, most people do this when they are 3 or 4 years old and have Lego or alike. But who knows what everyone's childhood was like? For me, I never had the luxury of Lego or even toys. In fact, the best present I got was on my 8th Christmas, and it was a racer bike that was made of 3 separate bikes that my dad had put together. Everything I owned was a second-hand or scavenged from the local tip. My first day at high school consisted of me wearing a hand-me-down uniform from the school sale, which gave me a cigarette-holed blazer and pants that were 2 inches too short. I didn't even have a school bag. I had a carrier bag. And this was on my very first day at high school at age 11. So maybe this upbringing had something to do with my need to become a child again. I don't know. I know through speaking to other flirts in my time there that they also had a very poor or tough childhood too. And maybe this is some kind of common denominator. But I think that will do for this episode. And I hope that it has given you a better understanding of the different factions inside Flat Earth, the different beliefs inside a Flat Earth, and an insight into why Flurf kitchen science might be so appealing to the Flurfs. Did they, like me, have very few, even no toys as children? Until the next time.
So the angle of attack is essentially what causes things to disappear from bottom up.